Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Lynn and today is my third and final part of the first set of cards that I've made using Kendra's card challenge number 9. If you missed parts 1 and 2, I'll link to those in the description box below, but here's a quick recap of the 6 cards that I'll be making in today's video. So without further ado, let's make these. Okay, so we are starting off with sketch number 10, and if you're not familiar with Kendra's card challenge, it is an amazing free resource just in general because Kendra puts out a free PDF that you can download, and I'll leave a link to that in the description box below if you want. And in this download, what you will find is a cutting guide for cutting down 6 sheets of 6x6 pattern paper, and as well, card sketches. In this quarter's challenge, there are 15 sketches where you can use all of those individual elements from your 6x6 pattern papers and cut them down to create 15 cards. So my set of cards, I've chosen to use papers from the Tonic Studios Coral Skies color trend. These are papers that I got as part of actually craft kit number 61, which had this, I think it was called Message in a Bottle. And so this card really encapsulates the idea of message in a bottle. And so all of the craft kits come with stamps and dies. And so what I've done is with the bottle, I've cut that out of vellum and out of white. And on the white layer, I stamped the a sailboat. And I did some partial die cutting for the water out of 2 different colors of cardstock that did come in the kit, and out of some craft card at the very top to sort of resemble the cork. And then I've just wrapped the top with some blue and white twine, and that actually helps to hold down the vellum, because with vellum, anywhere you put adhesive, you can actually see that through the vellum, and there's not a lot of open solid areas to tack down the vellum, because I'm leaving the top of the bottle fairly uncovered, and usually that's the only places where, if you want to avoid your glue being seen, you really can only put glue where you know you're gonna put something on top of the vellum. And so having that bit of twine at the top actually helps hold down the vellum and keep that attached to the card. I did leave the open ends of my twine rather long, and I had the idea of actually just tying these seashells, which are part of the die set in Craft Kit 61. And so I'm going to tie these seashells to my bottle, kind of like they were little charms. So I thought that would be a cute way to use them. One thing you might be noticing is that I'm not exactly following the sketch. So if you look at the sketch clearly, it shows that this is a landscape card. And here, I knew I wanted to use the bottle, but I wanted to use the bottle in an upright position. And so keep in mind that whenever you're using sketches, they are a starting point for your creativity. And I'm still using the papers that I cut originally, as I showed in part 1 of my video series. I've just decided for the focal image that I wanted to use, this is better positioned as a portrait-oriented card. So that's what I did. I just turned the sketch on its side and made it into a portrait card. Okay, so now on to sketch number 11. This one is another landscape card, which I think is really nice that there's always the combination in Kendra's card challenges of portrait and landscape oriented cards, because as you saw a moment ago, sometimes the image that you're working with or the die cuts that you're working with are better suited one way versus another. And here again, I am turning my card, and I even turned the sketch just to make it a little bit more obvious. And I always think that you kind of want to just make it work for what you want to have as part of your focal image or part of your theme. So the sketch that I'm working on, it's actually it's the one that's actually to the left. And so the two pieces that came from the original 6 sheets of paper that I chose, they're those long strips. But the reason why I wanted to turn this into a portrait oriented card is because I wanted to bring some additional pattern papers, and I wanted to use the one that has these seagulls in them. And that particular pattern has a specific orientation, and so it has to go in that direction, and that's the size that I had left to use. So that's why I decided, okay, I guess I'm gonna flip this one on its turn this one on that 90-degree angle as well, in order to be able to use this pattern paper. And sometimes that's going to happen. Sometimes you're gonna have directional prints, and so you always do have that freedom to add your own little twist to your pattern papers, or to your sketches, I should say. And in this case, with the polka dot print, I wanted it to stand out a little bit better than it was from the pattern paper behind it, and that's why I did add a couple of thin strips of solid color cardstock to either side of it. So, you don't necessarily see that being represented in the sketch, but it's just something that I wanted to add in order to have that pattern stand out a little bit better from the print that was behind it. And the little sailboat, again, came from the Tonic Craft Kit number 61. And if you're playing along with the challenge, and if you're not, let me tell you a little bit more about how to play along. So Kendra's Card Challenge also has a Facebook group, which I'll leave a link to in the description box below as well. And if you pop on over to the website, download the free PDF, you'll get the cutting guide and all of the card sketches. And if you play along and actually create all 15 cards that are part of this challenge, take a photo of all of them together, and you can submit it to the Facebook group as an entry for the chance to win some fabulous prizes. So there are a lot of amazing companies who are sponsors of this challenge, and they have graciously donated gift certificates and product bundles to lucky winners who play along with this challenge. So each challenge runs for 3 months, and you can actually enter multiple times. You can enter a maximum of 1 time per month. And by entering 1 time, that does mean actually completing the full set of 15 cards. So yes, if you do play along multiple times, you'll have a lot of cards, but if you give away a lot of cards for the holidays, for birthdays, or if you donate cards, or if you sell cards, this is a really fantastic opportunity to get a lot of cards done and have a lot of different ideas for cards. So while it's a lot of cards, every card is unique and different in the design and the layout. And that's why I feel like this is such a valuable resource, even if you don't play along with the challenge, because you get the cutting guide, which is amazing because it's a very, very efficient way to cut down your 6x6 pattern papers. You basically end up with zero waste if you follow along and make all of the cards according to the sketches. So I love that. I love that it's a zero waste kind of project. And then I also love the fact that each of the cards that you can create are different. And so, sometimes it's nice to do batch making where all of the cards are the same, but most of the time I really love making, I don't love making the exact same card multiple times. So with a sketch challenge like this, it's so fun because all of the sketches are different, and it's really nice to learn, for me anyways, different ways to compose a card. So that I find really valuable as well. Just the fact that there are some sketches that will resonate with me a little bit more than others. And then I find that over time, that just becomes part of my kind of my tool belt, and I just naturally will make cards in that layout or that sketch without even looking at the card sketch, just because it's just something that has stuck with me. So I find that every time I play along with the card challenge that I learn something new and I pick up some new favorites. And so even just as a resource, I highly recommend it. But if you're going to download the free PDF, then I would suggest playing along because the prizes you can win are pretty fantastic. And you don't have to wait until the end of the 3 months to see if you've won or not, because Kendra will actually pick winners each month. So at the end of January, she'll pick some winners. At the end of February, she'll pick some winners. And at the end of March, she'll pick some winners. So the more you play along, the more chances you'll have to win a gift from one of the many fabulous sponsors. So I hope you'll consider that. But if nothing else, I hope you'll at least grab the download and use that as a resource and as inspiration. My plan is to play along with Kendra's card challenge again next month. I haven't picked out what papers I'll be using, but look forward to another video series where I will play along with the challenge and use a completely different set of pattern papers. I have really enjoyed this, the Coral Skies color trend from Tonic Studios, and it's strange, but I think it works that the patterns and the colors work well for both that sort of sea sailboat theme that was Tonic Craft Kit 61, but it always still seemed to work really well for the So Happy Showcase stamp and die set. So I know that those are such different motifs, but I feel like it just worked really well. So here's the final 2 cards, and I'm gonna work on these together a little bit because they are a little bit similar, but flipped from each other. And you'll often find this. So the other thing that I know I mentioned when in one of my previous videos, but one of the things that I really like is that if you look at the sketches when you are picking out your pattern papers, you're going to find that some of the pattern papers will get combined with another pattern more often, and it may never get combined with some other papers. And so that's why I like to look at the sketches when I'm picking my papers, because for instance, this particular one with the birds, it doesn't get combined too often with many of the other papers because a large portion of it was cut and then split between these two sketches. But when you look at these two sketches, it's the only pattern paper from the original 6 sheets that is used on these 2 sketches. So everything else where you see white, where you see grays, that's total flexibility for you to bring something else to the card, whether that's some solid color cardstock, you can emboss a panel, you can do an inky background, whatever you like, maybe more pattern paper if you want. And so when I see papers like this, it's great because I can really, I don't have to worry too much about this particular pattern matching up really well with some of my other selections. And so that's why I really like to as I'm picking my papers, to actually look at the sketches, not so much at how it's going to get cut. And that way I don't have to feel like every pattern paper I choose has to match with the other 5 that get picked, because there's only really a couple. Usually it's only maybe 2 or 3 other patterns that particular paper will get paired with. And so for this, what I did was I just cut down some scrap paper to the size of that it needs to be to kind of ensure that when I put these 2 pieces together, it actually lines up and is the proper size. And so in this case, I just cut using one of the border dies that I think also came in the craft kit, and I just cut that little fancy kind of scalloped edge on one end. And I actually flipped the original pattern paper. I flipped it to use the back. So that's the other thing that I definitely recommend when you are playing along with Kendra's card challenge. It's not, of course, mandatory, but I recommend it because it gives you more flexibility when you use double-sided papers. Because then you can always keep that in mind as you are making your card, that if the other pattern, the pattern on the opposite side happens to work a little bit better, or it's just one that maybe you had to pick one that had a specific orientation for a different sketch, but now the way that pattern is oriented on, the sketch you're working on doesn't quite work out the same way. You can always maybe flip it to the back, and maybe you'll have something that's non-directional and easier to use. So that's why I always try to, when I can, use double-sided pattern papers, because I always feel like I'm not going to get pinned into a corner where I struggle to use a pattern. So having those options is really nice. So I again, this sort of illustrates how I've used the same papers, the same color scheme. The card that I already finished up is following the Message in a Bottle craft kit with the theme of the sea and sailboats and whatnot. And the card I'm working on now, I'm actually using the So Happy Showcase set, and it's got the sewing motif. And I think because the patterns are, I love the small kind of ditty patterns, like that small close print of the polka dots and even the pattern below it, which is a little bit more random. But I feel like that almost feels a little bit more like prints that you might find on fabric, on clothes. And I think that is why it made me think of using the So Happy die set. That, and there was another print of that really dark navy blue that has sort of that pinstripe pattern to it. That definitely also reminds me of like a man's suit, sort of. So really, really fun. And my final touches for both of these cards will be some Nuvo drops. I like to make my Nuvo drops in advance so that they are dry and I can do what I just did there. Like, I can kind of audition where I think I might like to see them, and then if there's maybe some different places I can just play a little bit before committing anything to paper. And also, a lot of times I make cards where it's not all the same, it's not all flush and not all the same level. And especially if you want to add drops to things like embossed panels where it's an uneven surface, if you make your drop directly onto that uneven surface, it actually might not dome evenly. So I always find that making the drops on a paper release liner helps with that. And plus, if you get something that doesn't dome nicely, you don't have to use it, as opposed to it being stuck on your card. So here's a final look at the 6 cards that wrap up my series for Kendra's card challenge number 9. This, as I mentioned, is my first set of cards, but next month I plan to make another set, and I'll also have a video series where I show you from beginning to end, choosing my papers, cutting my papers down, and actually creating each of the 15 sketches in this challenge. Thanks so much for joining me today, and I hope you play along with the challenge. Links to everything are in the description box below. Thanks again. Until next time, happy crafting and have a fantastic day. Bye.